Broncos country. What is good? How are y'all feeling this evening? It is Monday, April 29th, and I am still coming off the high of this draft over the weekend. It was fun. For those of you guys that don't know me, if it's your first time watching, I appreciate you guys tuning in. My previous Bo Nix video was getting a lot of love after we drafted him. So I hope you guys are liking the content. My name is Mark. I'm a local native here. A like, a comment, and of course, hitting that subscribe button to help me get to. We're starting off. It's still early. We're to get to 100 subscribers is definitely the goal. So I'd much appreciate it. But more importantly, I hope that you guys like the content, and I really look for feedback, positive, negative, neutral, anything in the comments that you guys feel like I could be doing better, or any kind of content you want me to cover more. I'm all for it. I'm all about covering sports content here on this channel, specifically focused on the Broncos, on the Nuggets, and of course on the Avalanche. There's always going to be a little bit more Broncos because not only is that the hot news, that's what I care about the most. But real quick note, go Nuggets. Let's finish it off tonight. I don't want to be nervous. I don't want to be nervous. So hopefully we can get it done tonight against the Lakers, and we'll make a react video to that whenever necessary. That'll be done pretty late, so maybe tomorrow. Anyways, what I wanted to do today, guys, and what I really wanted to focus on is thinking what year two or later young developmental talent on this team are the biggest X factors in determining the future of the Denver Broncos, right? So I'm gonna leave out the rookie class because that's always an obvious. And I want to make this video a little bit different. So some guys that are on the roster, some of these guys might not even make the team. You don't know, but guys that I'm really intrigued by that have a ton of potential, a ton of developmental traits, things that I love, and guys that, man, if they do develop into what I really feel like they can be, it'll not only allow for 2024 to be a much better year in terms of win-loss than I think a lot of people are anticipating, but it'll set us up really, really nicely moving forward, regardless of how this rookie class um, stacks out. So I hope you guys like it, and by all means, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm curious to know you guys' thoughts on this. All right. Well, what we're going to do here, we're going to start off at number 10. And we're going to work our way up to number one. All right. So, like I said, there's no rookies involved. A lot of these guys are younger guys. And, I think that their development and what ends up happening with them can be a really, really big X factor as to what happens with the future of this Broncos team. All right. And there was a lot of guys. I'll do an honorable mention, right? Number 11, just because there's so much unknown with this guy. So, my number 11 honorable mention is Ioma Awuzurike. All right. And the reason is because I have no idea if this guy's even going to get allowed in the league. I don't even know if the Broncos are going to keep him with all the stupid gambling stuff that he got himself into. I have no idea. But assuming that he does, and assuming the Broncos welcome him back and they give him a chance, this is somebody that people forget has unbelievable, unbelievable talent. I mean, you're talking 6'5", 280, 290 something pounds, freak athlete, can absolutely play everywhere on the line. He can be somebody that could really be a key factor moving forward if he ends up developing into the player that I think he can be, because you can play him at a lot of different parts of the line. I think we've shored up a lot of the defensive line needs that we needed, especially with trading for JFM, Mr. John Franklin Myers. I think it's going to be huge. But we will see. We'll see with Ayoma Uzurike because there's so much unknown. I don't want to put him quite in the top 10, but this list was tough. Number 10 is my guy, my dude, somebody that I love, and he never gets enough love. I don't know why. And that's Brandon Johnson. This is somebody that I think every time he's gotten an opportunity to play, he's played well. He's been solid. It seems like every time he's targeted, he catches the ball. I think that if he can stay healthy and if he can just get more opportunities, he's big. And he could probably be higher on this list if the inevitable happens with Cortland Sutton, which I think will, about him getting traded. Because he's somebody that, even though he's not the biggest guy, he is still 6'2", is close to about 200 pounds. He projects to be able to fill that Cortland Sutton role. I don't really think that there's crazy amount of things that Cortland Sutton can do that Brandon Johnson can't. I mean, okay, you talk about the 50-50 balls, the prayer balls, sure. But Brandon Johnson, I feel like he's a little bit quicker. He separates a little bit better. He's got really good hands. And I think that there's so much room for growth there. And he's somebody that I think projects to be able to fill that role potentially past this year. I think if it was just this year, there's probably some other guys, but he's a really intriguing guy and somebody that I think can be a really, really good, productive receiver that's young, that's cheap, and that can help us continue to build this roster, whether it be in free agency or in the draft next season. So love Brandon Johnson there at number 10. Number 9 is Jaquan McMillian. I'm basically starting off with two of my favorite guys because Jaquan McMillian is somebody who burst on the scene last year, and he was so consistent and he did it game in and game out. It was not something that was just an anomaly. The dude is an absolute baller. He's somebody that you can build the secondary around. I think he can develop into not only being a really big impact player because it seemed like he was the one that was constantly causing turnovers, but as a leader, both vocally and with his play on the field. I really think he has potential to be a very, very special player in this defense. He can play in the slot where I think he's best suited, but he can play outside. Man, he brings the juice. The guys seem to love him. I'm a huge Jaquan McMillian fan, and I love what we got. I think we really got a gem there, and I think he's somebody that can be a huge X factor for the Broncos moving forward. And there's a couple other guys in the secondary that we'll get to that are ranked a little bit higher. But if one or both of these guys can really, or all three of these guys really can shine, man, we're gonna have a really nasty, young, good secondary for a while. Uh, Obviously with Pastor Tan there as well. All right, so that is my number 9. Number 8, moving up the list, is another guy in the secondary. It's PJ Locke. Now, I was thinking about maybe flipping these guys, but the thing about PJ Locke, what's interesting about him is just because he's somebody that I don't think he's ever going to break the bank to be able to re-sign, but he can just be really good. He seems like he's all over. He seems like he really does like to hit. He can play both safety spots. You can mix him into some dime backer roles. He's he can be somebody that could really shore up and be the future of the safety position. I think he's going to complement Brandon Jones really, really well. I was thinking about Caden Stearns on this list as well, but he's just so injury prone. And but when he's healthy, we've seen so much from him already. It's not really going to be much of a surprise. So I think if PJ Locke is somebody that can really develop into a good player, he can really help shore up the secondary as well. And like I said, position versatility on this team is huge. And I like that. I like when young, hungry, but very cheap players in the secondary develop to be really good because then you're not overpaying at a position that is not unbelievably important unless you are a Super Bowl contending team. And so if you can really work on developing from within and becoming better in the secondary with young guys, like I said, that are just hungry and that are developing together to have that cohesion, it's huge. So number 8 is PJ Locke. My number 7. Now this one I went back and forth on because it might be tough to be able to really understand or see the kind of development because it would take an injury for this player to be able to show what he's made of. But it's Alex Pochowski. Now, Alex Pochowski is one of those guys. We got him undrafted last year. I believe he played at Illinois. And the buzz around him was extremely experienced player, a little bit older prospect, but kind of physically limited. But when he got brought into camp, they really liked him. All you hear from the team is that they're positive stuff. They think that the redshirt year was great. He developed. They like what they saw in practice, like what I saw in the preseason. So with Alec Polchowski, it might be a little bit easier, it might be a little bit difficult to actually be able to grade him and see what he's doing. But I think obviously him making the team, if he can supplant, um, uh, is it Matthew Pert or the Pert guy that we got to be the swing tackle? If he can supplant him and be the reason that he ends up not getting a job because they feel comfortable with him, I love it. But the reason that he's such a key factor is because he's somebody that we got as undrafted, right? Similar to Crum this year, right? That has the potential to maybe be your starting left tackle if we were to move on from Garrett Bowles after this year. And he can be a swing tackle for years to come. He's not going to cost you anything. And I'm all about player development. Just look at the Nuggets and how they've done it. I always talk about that. That's what the Broncos really needed to put an emphasis and a focus on. And I think now that they have that continuity top down, they'll be able to do it. So Alec Palczewski, shout out to him. I'm excited to see how he plays. I think he's somebody that's got enormous talent and can be a huge X factor. Because think about if we go into next year confident in Alex Palczewski being the future left tackle, which, like I said, it's a low chance. Then you really can just look at BPA and being able to build other needs in the draft or in free agency when we have a lot of money. So Alex Palczewski's number 7. Might be a little bit controversial, but I really dig that, and I think it's some a position that is always valuable to be able to continue to develop for sure. And obviously, looking forward to see Mr. Crum as well. I think it's going to be great. Number 6, and this guy could be higher, but there's one reason why he's not, and that is Nick Bonito. All right, Nick Bonito is somebody that took a really big step from year one to year two. In year two, he looked stronger. He looked like he belonged in the NFL a little bit better. He was a sick pass rusher, but he still remained a situational pass rusher because he still wasn't quite there yet in terms of his ability to set the edge, play the run. He's definitely head and shoulders better than he was his rookie year, but he's still got room for growth there. The reason he's not higher is because we're in a crowded room. We've got a lot of options. Jonathan Cooper can be a mainstay in this defense for a long time. Baron Browning is going to be a free agent after the season. He can be a mainstay for a long time. So with Nick Bonito, there's not so much of um, quick turnaround, like he has to do it in year three. But if he can continue that growth, you're talking about somebody that it's not like, oh, he's going to be a really solid cornerstone player for us that, can get a decent contract. You're talking about he has the ability to be one of the higher paid defensive players in the entire NFL because he has that kind of talent. And man, he plays with his head on fire when he's playing. I love watching Nick Bonito. I think that guy, I mean, think about if he develops into an elite pass rusher, like I really do believe that he can, with really, really solid to borderline elite guys in Jonathan Cooper and in Baron Browning, and then man, whatever the hell Jonah Ellis does, that's a sweet room, and that's gonna make a a defense overall one of the better units. So really big there on Nick Benito. Hoping that he can take that next step to be big. Now, arguably, you can make the argument that my number five should definitely be lower than number six, but there's a reason why he's not and why the development of this particular player is so important, and that's Drew Sanders. Now, with Drew Sanders, his position versatility is unique, but he's somebody that I really believe the Broncos need to commit to at one position, and that one position should be off ball, outside linebacker to play next to Alex Singleton. Now, I know we got Jonas Griffith, and I think Jonas Griffith is definitely better than him as an off-ball linebacker right now. But if he's somebody that you can develop, especially given how much you gave up for him to move up last year and get him, I think you gave up this year, like one of the third-round picks you had this year for him. It would really be able to justify that move because when you look at him play and when you look at him physically and his athletic talent, he's got Dre Greenlaw type of ability. He's just thinking a lot out there and he really needs reps and he really needs development. He definitely needs to get a little bit stronger. So he's somebody that, man, he can take that interior part of that defensive line to a next level. And being an off-ball linebacker, not only does he have the physical tools to be able to cover tight ends if obviously he can develop right, but he can help a lot in that run game. Stopping the run is something that we've really struggled with. So he can help on both areas. So his development is imperative for the future of this team, right? Imperative. Um, so I think Drew Sanders. I hope that they just come out and you start to see in early OTAs and minicamp that they are using him at off-ball linebacker like they should, because he has to develop at both positions. I mean, there's a lot of development that needs to happen, but he has like a ginormous mountain to climb when it comes to the pass rushing, just because of him actually developing that skill set, but B, the four guys, there's 4 or 5 guys that are ahead of him that are better right now as pass rushers, and they're all developmental guys too. So I just don't think there's room for him there. So I'm excited to see what Drew Sanders can do if he can take that next leap. If he can make even like a Nick Bonito year 1 to year 2 leap, you're going to see a player that's out there that looks like he belongs to be out there, that's going to be out there making some plays, and is also a baller on special teams. That is one thing that he was as a rookie. So I think he's here to stay, and I'm excited to see him continue to develop. Number 4, this might be a little bit controversial because I think that there's a lot of people that think he should be higher. But Riley Moss at number 4. If Riley Moss can end up being that true second corner, starting cornerback opposite of Pat Surtain, with the kind of talent that he has and his track record of being able to really fit well into this zone heavy system, I think he could be huge. You know, it would be really, really great to be able, because we know we're paying Pat Surtain next year. That's obvious now. We're paying him big money, and you're going to need that guy opposite of him to just be a lock. Somebody that he's going to get tested a lot, and if he can go out there and make some plays, it's going to be huge. There's a lot of developmental guys. I mean, obviously with Chris Abrams Brain that we drafted. I really haven't lost hope on. I don't know why I always screw up his name. It's going to bother me. Number 27, we drafted him a couple years ago. He showed like he was so good in his rookie season, man. He looked awesome. Demari Mathis. Didn't have to look it up fully. Damari Mathis could also be that guy too. But I think he's kind of in the doghouse with this new coaching staff. But man, if really either one of those guys, but really Riley Moss, just because he was drafted pretty highly last year, we moved up to get him. Um, I really like what he can bring. I like the fact that he can play a lot of different positions. You can even mix him up in some safety on some different packages. He's somebody that uh, his development is huge because people don't really understand the number one cornerback on a team is important, right? And if you know me, you know I don't think that cornerback is this unbelievably sought after elite positional group um, that you need to always look for. I've never really been a believer in it because if you look at the defenses or the teams that have won Super Bowl recently, even with a really good defense, they don't always necessarily have an elite corner. But an elite cornerback is somebody who is a luxury, but it's a huge cherry on top and a huge bonus if you're a very, very good team or if you're a team that's contending, right? But what people don't understand is a really important position aside from cornerback number one. If you have a shutdown elite corner like PS2, the guy on the other side is going to get tested like crazy. He's going to get way more balls thrown his way. They're going to focus. They're going to try to shift the number one receiver that way. They're going to do a lot of things to avoid where PS2 is. So if Riley Moss can become that guy, and I am skeptical, I'm not gonna lie. I think that there's other guys that actually have a better chance of doing good. Like I'm still higher on Damari Mathis than I am of Riley Moss, just because I've seen it. But his development is huge. And then you're not gonna sit there and need to overspend for another corner, and then you're allocating way too much money for a cornerback room. That obviously doesn't mean that you can't draft somebody high in a couple years, but I think Riley Moss is imperative to the future of this team and he's my number four X factor in terms of X factors for the Broncos' future. Number three is Alex Forsythe. Now, some people could say, well, it could also be Luke Wattenberg. Alex Forsythe, I think, is the guy. People were super high on him. I was watching Cecil and Andrew Mason talking earlier, and apparently one of these very well respected scouts, somebody that Cecil likes a lot, had Alex Forsythe as his number one center last year. Now he ended up going in, I think it was the seventh round, but he had that year to develop. They're super high on him, so high on him that they really didn't even address center in free agency. Like they got Mustafa, but you know he's just one of those guys that like in case of emergency you have somebody that can play. But I think he's going to get all the opportunities to be the starter, and if he can end up being a very very good uh, center for years to come, it can be huge for our offensive line because it can keep that unit together. It can allow for us to continue building with Miners who's going to get paid with Ben Powers. I think we should look at extending Garrett Bowles, but whoever the future left tackle is, and then Mike McGlinchey on the right side. That brings the unit together. We're not overly spending or allocating too much dollars in the offensive line, and he can grow alongside with your rookie quarterback. Right? People don't really. I think a lot of fans they underestimate the importance of the chemistry between quarterback and center, and center is probably the most important position on the O line. Now I know people are like, "Well, what do you mean left tackle is?" But these guys are responsible for so much. Like even the left tackle to an extent can be you can kind of hide a little bit of the flaws. You can have a back or a tight end there to chip. You can have a quarterback that gets the ball out of his hand quickly. There's a lot of that. But in center, man, the center screws up the cadence. The whole line is bad. If the center doesn't, screws up his block, now the quarterback's got pressure in his face. So even if he gets rid of the ball, it might not get completed. Um, he's responsible for checks. He's responsible for really holding the quarterback accountable for doing the right protections, for the cadence. Huge in the run game, especially if they're able to, get the ball and get out and move and block the linebackers in the second level. It's an incredibly, incredibly important position. I think the reason that our O line has really come together and played so much better last year is because of the strides that Cush made. And so Alex Forsythe is a hugely important and a ginormous X factor for when it comes to being that guy and the future of this team. You want to be able to have somebody hold down that position for a long time. Look at Creed Humphrey, like they got there in Kansas City, is a perfect example of that. So Alex Forsythe is my number three. My number two, and this could be one of two guys, but I chose one because I'm extremely pessimistic about the other for a health standpoint, and that's Lucas Kroll. All right, I know that sounds crazy, but just imagine if Lucas Kroll can develop into a solid game changing type or potential game changing type tight end. Because I'll tell you, what I saw of him last year, the guy had all the tools. And there was a lot of routes that he ran and he was wide open. We just had a midget quarterback that liked to run into sacks that didn't want to see him. But the guy was wide open. He had a lot of opportunities. He kept getting trotted out there. I think he developed a lot, which is really good. Sean Payton absolutely loves him. And this could be Greg Dulcich, obviously, if he didn't have a terrible injury history, which is wild because that kind of just came out of nowhere, man. So really either one of them, but I think realistically it's going to be Lucas Kroll because I think he's going to be available, and I think he's somebody that has a ridiculous amount of potential. I mean, people don't really realize with Lucas Kroll, this guy has like he's a ridiculous specimen when it comes to playing football. Now, did he have a good career? Was he huge when he played at Pitt in college? I mean, he started 11 out of his 14 games in his senior year. He had 38 catches. He had 451 yards for an average of roughly 12 yards a catch, and he had 6 touchdowns. So it was okay, especially for a team like Pitt or they don't necessarily throw the ball that much, but he's over 6'6", 253 pounds, and he looks like it. He's got really long arms, big hands. He ran a 4.64 on the 40. His 10-yard split is incredibly impressive. Like, to give you an idea, his 10-yard split is the same as Troy Franklin, right? So, yeah, Troy Franklin's more of that like long-term build-up speed, but the guy can get off the line. He can cause separation. He's got a lot of tools to work with. And I think when you have a coaching staff that loves him and believes in him, you're setting him up. And if Lucas Kroll can become that guy that really takes a step, because you look at the history, tight ends, it takes them, for the most part, it takes them a few years to really develop in the NFL, really depending on the system. And he's already a pretty decent blocker. So he's going to be able to play a lot more. And I think he's huge. I think if he lets you shore up that tight end position to where you're not constantly chasing every single year, because you're not going to get him in free agency. I mean, free agent tight ends, the good ones, they rarely hit free agency. Think about how big that would be to give your new rookie quarterback a safety blanket, legitimate option, somebody that he can always throw to. You're talking about the difference between next season being, ranked maybe somewhere between 18 to 25 in offense and top 12. That's the kind of impact that tight ends typically make. So I'm optimistic about Lucas Kroll. I really am. I think he's somebody that is being slept on and can make a huge impact. And I think it's why the Broncos didn't desperately go after any kind of tight end, whether it be in the draft or whether it be in free agency. I mean, even if they went after a vet, you can be like, all right, at least it's a guy there that can, have some decent production out of a bad room. They did it for a reason. So I really like what Lucas Kroll can do. And that's why I got him as my number 2. All right. Number 1. I was going back and forth with this. It was tough. But drum roll, please. The number 1 biggest X factor for the future of the Denver Broncos is Marvin Mims. And for a lot of obvious reasons. So first of all, he's already an elite special teams player, right? And he gives you that crazy be able to take it to the crib every time he's punt returning or kick returning, especially with these new rules. It's going to be huge. But if Marvin Mims can become the player that we believe that he can be and reach his potential, he's got 1,500-yard upside, electric. He brings the juice. He brings unbelievable speed and excitement to this offense. He's somebody that Bo Nix will be able to love throwing the ball to. And so with his development, he really needs, I think just needs a lot of reps, but he needs to be able to get better at running all of the route trees. If you put him outside, he'll win. If you put him inside in the slot, he'll win. If you, flex him at a tight end position, like in terms of where he's lining up, basically the outside slot, he'll win. You can use him on jet sweeps and on different motions. The guy has that kind of potential. Like, he's Troy Franklin, but more physical in stature. And when he came out of college, he reminded me of a very, very, very poor man's version of Steve Smith, but he's got that Steve Smith senior type of potential, right? And he could be huge. Him and Troy Franklin can be a really exciting tandem, moving forward. Now he is a little bit, I would say, undersized in a sense of for height, right? Because he's not the tallest guy, but he's a well-built kid. He plays strong. He doesn't look like he just gets easily tackled. I mean, so he's a little bit thicker. He weighed in at the combine at 182 pounds at 5'11". So he didn't weigh in big, but he just looks stockier. He plays a little bit stronger. But that 4.38 speed is something that I think is special. But I really look forward to watching somebody like him take that next step. And that's kind of the big reason why I am an advocate of getting rid of Sutton. Now I get that Sutton and Marvin Mims. I get it that they play separate positions. I don't think having Sutton on this team is going to hamper necessarily the growth of Marvin Mims, or the development of Marvin Mims. But I want to trot out Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims and Brandon Johnson, and you can mix in like Tim Patrick and Lil Jordan Humphrey if you feel like you need to, right? To have some big bodies and developmental guys, even Devon Vele, um, or God, there's so many young guys that I'm forgetting about too. I got to go back in and look at it. But that the speedster that just kept getting hurt, he kept like Jalen Virgil. I want to trot out those guys, and I just want to see them go out there and compete and work and get better and be able to say, you know what, I don't know what position these guys are going to play, but we're going to figure it out, and we're going to go out there and we're going to ball heavy. And I think that by getting rid of Marvin by Sutton, not only does it take out what I think is now become a bad apple potentially in the locker room, um, because and I understand where Sutton's coming from too, but I really just want to see these young dudes develop and ball out and play. And if Marvin Mims can end up being a true wide receiver one, who we really thought Jerry Judy was going to become, another reason that this offense is going to be huge. Like imagine Lucas Kroll becomes something good. Imagine Troy Franklin comes in here and he's that burner that takes the top off the defense, and Marvin Mims can do everything. He's your Swiss Army knife. That's going to be a fun group of skill position players for Bo Nix to throw the ball to. So that's my list. Let me know what y'all think. You like it? Do you hate it? What are your disagreements? What do you agree with? If you have any additions, let me know. I love to comment. I love to interact with y'all, and I really appreciate all the love. But it would really help me out if you could consider hitting that subscribe button for your boy and keep up with the latest content. Otherwise, hope you guys have a wonderful day. A mile high salute to you guys all. Be safe. And as always, peace out, everybody.